Welcome to Living Low Sodium with Mary Schepp. Join Mary as she tickles your taste buds with her salty wit and her exceptional palate, all whilst guiding us through the land of low sodium living. Brought to you in part by the support of Reeses Barkery Pawtique. ReesesBarkery.com, 815-363-7297. Today, welcome back. Healthy Holidays. Part 1, SOUPS. SOUPS. Welcome back.
Well, welcome. I still think it would be a riveting show if I just laid on the table and slept for an hour. Just saying.
That's it. That's healthy.
Right? So it's funny because we seem to, when I go back and look at previous episodes and series and what we've done over the show, and obviously, you know, there's only so much you can talk about. And I truly do love the holiday season, and I hate cold, despise cold, but I love soup season, and I love the holiday season, and I love the cooking and the baking and the family and the friends and the just the vibe of the holiday season is just one of my favorites, as it is many. So it's not that we haven't talked about the same topics on the show numerous times, but it seems almost to the day that we talk about soup every year for the past 3 years.
Every year.
And I normally bring in soup.
Phil, it's absolutely delicious.
Phil. He ate it all. I'm sorry. There was none left for you. He didn't save you any.
Inside joke.
So I need a hair tie of some kind. So yeah, it was.
I don't have.
I made soup last night and spent hours slaving away and made. It is one of my more expensive soups. Yeah. Because it's a vegetarian bisque. It's on my website. Carrie's Southwest vegetarian tomato bisque. And normally, my refrigerator is like 25 years old. So to put an entire batch of soup, which is in these, little quart containers or whatever, 2 quart, it's a lot of heat in a very old refrigerator. So when it's cool out like this, I put it out on my front porch, which is enclosed. So it cools off for an hour before putting it in the refrigerator. So this morning when I went to go pack up the soup to bring to share with people, and there was no soup in my refrigerator, it was still sitting on my front porch, which means it's cold enough now to cool off a soup. It is not cold enough to keep a soup below the temperature needed to make sure that I didn't poison any of my friends. I mean, I like you, Ken. Right. And Phil. I like you too. But I didn't want to risk making anybody sick. So I literally just wasted and worse than that is the fact that I wasted that much food. Yeah. That's the part that drives me crazy. But it is. Of all of the soups that I had to mess up, it's my most expensive soup to make because I don't cook with garbage ingredients.
Right.
So.
Well, if you're going to goof up, that's Murphy's Law, right? If you're going to goof up on it, it's not going to be the chicken.
No, it's not going to be the one that has 3 ingredients. It's going to be the vegetarian soup that's got 19 million different fresh vegetables and vegetable stock and all of that good stuff.
It's not going to be Campbell's that you've opened up and dumped 2 cans of water into this.
Right? The condensed.
Yeah.
You know how many times in my broke, early 20 years that you're just starving and I would just eat a can of Campbell's or tomato soup without actually diluting it.
SpaghettiOs.
Yeah, just straight out of the can.
Yeah, straight out of the can. Yep.
Heat it up. You can actually throw the can into a pot of boiling water and just heat the can up and then eat it straight.
People always thought I was weird because, it was just cold. Hey, Nora.
Yeah,
how are you?
No, but I love soups and it seems to be one of my most popular episodes. Like if I go back and look at the statistics on all of our soup or holiday eating recipe episodes, that it's always the most popular, which I mean, I get because that's what everybody wants to know that's the $1 million question. How do you eat healthy during the holidays? Because it seems like an impossibility and it's not.
Right.
As we both proved, you can eat healthy and not drink during holidays and not die. I mean, it's not as hard as complicated as you think it is.
Not as complicated.
So my question is always why either everybody's lying to me and my soups aren't really that good, or something's wrong, because there's such a significant difference between my soup and the way it tastes and the stuff at the store. Like you buy a heart where it's got the heart healthy stamp on it, which when it has a heart healthy stamp on it, pretty much all that means is that it's got less than 410 milligrams of sodium per serving. So when you're looking at like a big can of the Campbell's Chunky Soup or something like that, that's 2 servings. In my world, I open a can of soup, I dump it in a bowl, and I eat all of it. So it's no longer heart healthy because I ate 2 servings. Like, why? I hate when they do that. When they give something that is obviously, it looks like it's a single serving, but in reality, like hot dogs and sausages and packets of stuff like that. The one time that I was so unbelievably angry is because I had a package of bratwurst, and they were, not just your cheap old bratwurst. They were some expensive, like artisan, whatever bratwurst that I bought. Like, hey, I look at the back, was super excited. They were low enough sodium for me to be able to, I can splurge today in the summer and have a bratwurst. And later on, Ben looks at it and he's like, well, this is weird. I'm like, what? He's like, there's like 22 servings in this package. He's like, that was an 8-pack, right? Yeah. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it's got to be a typo. So when you read it, because they were big fat sausage bratwurst, you got like just over a third of a bratwurst was 1 serving. What is that garbage? Like I'm going to eat a third just over. It wasn't even a third or a half. It was like in between this weird land. But that's where soup is. You look at it and it's unbelievable to think of the amount of things that you look at, and they are, the majority of people think that that's healthy, and it's not. So not to pick on Panera, but I'm going to pick on Panera. They have good food. They have salted food.
Oh yeah, very salted.
Once a month, one of my boards meets and we go to Panera, and we were standing in line, and one of my fellow board members for one of the organizations I'm on, I'm looking at the menu and he's like, what, you never been here before? I said, no, I can't decide what to get because nothing here is good for me. And he says, how can that possibly be? They sell soups, sandwiches, and salads. Like everything here is healthy. And it's not. It's so unbelievably bad for you. Every time I eat at Panera, I swallow up 15 pounds of water weight and feel like garbage, and I get bloated because it's nothing but salt and carbs. So, I mean, no offense to Panera. I mean, it's tasty food, but it's tasty because it's heavily salted. So they're amplifying the flavor of crappy garbage ingredients. Sorry, Panera. That's why their soups are tasty, though. That's why everybody loves, like, their tomato soup is fantastic.
Delish.
But it's pretty much condensed or tomato paste or condensed tomato sauce with a boatload of salt and a bunch of different emulsifiers like guar gum. What does Ted say?
Yeah, Ted says use half the soup can, add half can of water. You get the full can with the right salt amount.
True, but then it's watered down soup and it makes me angry. So, which is, I mean, I've done that quite a bit in the past, especially when I first got diagnosed and I had to be very, very, very diligent, which I'm heading into that phase again because my hormones changed again, and that's just the way life is. So, but I always wondered how come, and I mean, I kind of know the answer because it's preservatives and garbage and cans and whatever. Yeah. But the soups in the store that say heart healthy tend to have this funky aftertaste. And the low sodium, they all have this weird, and I get it. The ones that actually advertise that they have potassium chloride in there, I get where that weirdness is coming from because potassium tastes like pennies. Right. To not everybody, but to some people. So I don't get how mine tastes so much better. I mean, you've eaten the soup that I brought in here. I brought in, other than today when I botched an entire batch of it, I brought in plenty of soup and it was okay.
Huh. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, everything's good. Yeah.
But that's the thing is, it's not like it's rocket science for what I'm doing. And the biggest thing that I have learned is without salt, I've had to learn what other spices taste like and where the flavors come from. So I was at Organic Roots the other day. If you haven't been, you should go. There's a location in Algonquin and one in Barrington, and they right now have their lentil soup, and it's got.
I love a good lentil soup.
Oh,
yeah.
And it's like you were saying. I asked Kent what his favorite, what's your warm and fuzzy go-to soup?
Yeah.
And it's the thicker, creamier, chunky soups.
Yeah.
This is what it was. It was almost like the consistency of a potato soup, but with lentils. It was just a nice thick lentil soup.
Yeah.
But from what I can understand, and I was so proud of myself for that, and I'm going to have to ask Umar, because I actually picked up some garam masala in there. And the fact that I could recognize those spice blends, because that's not a spice. It's a blend of spices.
Right.
Like, curry. Curry is not a spice. It's a blend. It's not pepper.
Yeah.
It's a blend of them. So the fact that I could pick that up and went, holy crap, I want to make something like this and replicate it. And that's what started me on my path of making my soup yesterday that I left. Can you tell I'm a little bit sour about leaving my soup on the porch?
Just a bit.
Man,
just a bit.
It made me angry.
Yeah.
So what? Oh, add olive oil. It won't taste.
Yeah, he says, when you do the half, just add some olive oil. Won't taste watered down.
So I've found a lot of things that I've cooked, and I wish you could probably look it up, and I can't pronounce it, but there's actually a phobia of cooking. There's people who, like, if you're scared of spiders or scared of water or scared of tornadoes, there's a phobia out there for people who are scared to cook.
Gordon Ramsay phobia.
Gordanophobia.
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 Yeah.
It actually starts with a G too, I believe.
Sue, and good morning, Sue, says,
hey, Sue.
One of the things I read is that your taste buds have a hard time distinguishing between salt and sour. So adding lemon or lime juice or zest helps.
100%. And I've found that significantly. Now, something to counteract that, and this is 100% anecdotal. This is not because of some scientific study thing that I read somewhere. My husband likes spicy. And on the flip side of that, using lemon or lime juice or zest or a citric acid of some kind to counteract, not having salt is 100% true. And I do that very often. But you can also use spice. I can't handle heat. I can handle a lot more than I used to now that my palate's changed, but I can't handle spicy. My husband, on the other hand, will chop up ghost peppers and put them on his salad like they're tomato coins.
Woo.
He's nuts.
Just a little.
But because he likes that spice, he can spot like a grain of lemon zest in a dish. It's not that he doesn't like lemon, but the second you bring a lemon anywhere near anything, and he will pick, that's the first thing he picks out. Did you put lemon in this? Like, he likes it, but it's very overpowering to him. So I have to be careful because I'll put 6 lemons in my soups and not have an issue, which is funny because avgoleimano is one of my favorite soups, and it takes a boatload of lemon for me. And my husband's like, yeah, this is overpowering. Never.
Yeah.
Never. Even when I get it at the restaurant that can never pronounce it properly. I still ask for more lemon. Sorry. We just went to a Greek restaurant 2 weeks ago and they pronounced it avgoleimano, which makes me giggle because it's a Greek restaurant. You think you would teach your staff how to pronounce the Greek soup.
Makes too much sense.
I know. It's technically a sauce.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to say it wrong. Avgoleimano is technically a sauce that a lot of times is known for a soup because they add chicken to it and turn it into a soup. But so when you think of, I don't really think of soup as holidays. I don't know why I included it in holidays. Just because it's the season, maybe. Speaking of Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, he just
last night.
Yeah, he was just cruising through Netflix, and I found a normal, not crazy Gordon Ramsay cooking show, like from his kitchen with his family as sous chefs.
Yeah, he's not always crazy. He's crazy for a lot of his shows.
Brilliant.
He's one of those people that I would love to have lunch with.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like to pull the notes from previous episodes because we talk about soup every season. We talk about holiday eating every season. That's why I did healthy for the holidays, because we're going to go through it. And I still, and it's another person that I would love to sit down and have lunch with if I ever had the opportunity, is Ann Burrell. She's a famous chef on the Food Network.
Crazy hair.
But she has been quoted saying, you cannot be a good cook if you don't use salt. And I argue that, because in my mind, so your taste buds start to die off and you reduce and you lose some of your sense of taste starting around at the age of 40, 45 years old. You look at all these testing panels, they're all 60, 70-year-olds. I'm like, when they're and my husband and I laugh every single time we watch a cooking show and they're like, man, this needs seasoning. It's because you're 70 and don't have any taste buds.
Right.
Like, why does it have to be salt? Me, on the other hand, I will load up garlic.
Yeah. So Alice and I are working with Wonder, WONDR. So changing our lifestyle. It's
Wonder Bread?
No, it's like Noom, but it's through Blue Cross Blue Shield, WONDR. It's wonderful. We're in our 10th week of it, and we've cut sugar out. We've cut a lot of
a big one.
A lot of salt out. She's down 10, 11 pounds. I'm down 15, and it's just the fun part is the very first week. So in this, they send you a thing of Pringles and a little bag of popcorn, and they teach you about flavor and where flavor comes from, texture, and why mentally your mind goes, oh, right, and how, so you have to lick this Pringle is weird, but I never noticed that the salt and flavor is only on one side.
Correct.
Of the Pringle. And then you chew slowly and things. And now when we go out, sometimes we get turned, whoa, especially I love barbecue, but you go to somebody who has pulled pork and there's more salt in there than pork.
See, that's the thing that was so amazing to me when my palate changed, is how much, like, I could taste salt in a soda.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going, how I never in my mind did it I'd never crossed my mind to think that there was that much sodium. And then I start, obviously, as early on in my diagnosis, where I'm looking and watching labels and reading labels and seeing how much sodium and everything is in stuff. And that's exactly, you go someplace that I've loved for years, and barbecue was one of them, where I'm going, wow, this sauce is insanely salty.
Yeah.
Like it's overpowering. And especially now that Ben eats the way I eat, because he's, apparently I don't cook horribly bad, and he minded, why make yourself something when I've cooked? So now he tastes all that salt, and it drives him absolutely bonkers. So to that point, when I make soup, so last night when I'm making this soup, and I'll have Ben taste it and ask what it's missing. Inevitably, he's always the ass that says, well, it needs salt, because, he's my husband and he likes to poke the bear. I'm not going to add salt. I don't think I actually even have salt in. Oh, no, I do have sea salt in my house.
Yeah.
I will use that from time to time on tomatoes, just because it's tasty. And once you're at salt is not necessarily bad for you. You need salt to live. So it's not that you can't have it. It's that everybody reacts to it differently, and that when you have a medical issue, you have to be mindful because of the water retention more so than the sodium level itself. Yeah. It's not the high salt that's going to kill you. Having a high salted dish isn't the part that's the problem. It's the fact that water is attracted and it retains water in your cellular structure, which causes high blood pressure, which causes a whole host of other problems. So it's the catalyst to that domino effect that is what salt causes the problem of. So canned soup versus homemade soup. And this is one where I'm kind of torn, because I use a decent amount of canned vegetables. No salt, just straight up, like, pay attention to the labels, you can get them. The problem is as we learn more and more, and of course you see lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit and all that, everybody talking about BPAs.
Yeah.
I tried to buy General Mill products because when they did the study, less than 50% of their cans tested for BPA, whereas Campbell's, soups, vegetables, whatever you buy, 100% of them tested positive for the chemicals inside the can lining. So,
well, a big thing now
take that for what you want.
Is it's in the dry goods, right? So they're like packaged, packaged with
the plastics, and the plastics I get. I was really shocked about the cans.
Yeah,
but
we've all had those canned soups that taste a little tinny,
right?
Yeah.
And there's not really a way to avoid it, because if you get rid of the cans, then you're buying frozen vegetables that are in a bag that have plastic. So unless you're growing 100% of your own stuff, you're kind of at the mercy of the canning in the packaging world. But on a good note, as they discover more of these things, they're getting rid of them. But the difference is in addition to the salt content in canned goods and soups, the preservatives and the emulsifiers and all of these things to make the soup the texture that you want it to be is technically the problem. And not only that, like the cream soups that you love so much, usually a canned cream soup is like 7 grams of fat. It's not even good fat.
Not good fat.
No, it's not. So you can control those things when you make your own soup.
And there's no wrong soup.
See, soup to me is like pizza. I know some people don't like soup.
Yeah.
I'm a soup lover, so it's very rare that I have a bad soup.
Well, I don't, like I said, I don't like bread. Keep me away from chicken noodle. Why? And chicken noodle and 7-Up. Why? Because growing up in the 70s and 80s, you got an upset stomach? Here, have some 7-Up, some crackers.
And then you throw up chicken noodle soup enough times?
Yeah.
It literally, you could throw it up right back in the can and seal it. It doesn't.
That's so true.
It's literally the same noodles that, I mean, the first time I made years and years and years ago, long before my diagnosis, and there was this crock pot soup recipe.
Yeah.
Throw everything in the crock pot, like a can of, cream of mushroom soup, chicken, like you throw everything in the crock pot, and it's this semi-homemade kind of deal.
Yeah.
And of course, the instructions say to throw the noodles in there. All right. Everybody's in the pool. Put the lid on it, 6 hours. And noodles don't take 6 hours to cook, no matter, even if you just put noodles in water, not hot water, just in water on the counter, give it enough time and they will swell up and be regular noodles that you can eat. So they were just mush. So I remember having a moment sitting there going, how the hell do the noodles stay noodles in Campbell's and Chef Boyardee? And how does... So, but it was literally, I was so excited. The house smelled amazing. Take the lid off the crock pot, and it was like mashed potatoes but it didn't taste like mashed potatoes because it was just a liquefied noodles, which was absolutely gross. We ended up having pizza that night. But I think that a lot of things, and I've talked about this in the past, that you have this notion in your mind that they're hard to make and they take a lot of time, so that's why people don't do it. Like meatballs. I get it. Lasagna takes a long time. It's a lot of steps. It's a lot of process. It's a lot of layers. It takes a long time. But soup is one of those things. It does take time to develop the flavors. Because if you make it all immediately right off the bat, you taste it and it just tastes bland.
Well, we shared, I've shared several times. My family still loves the story. Lucy, my youngest, it was about this time of year. She was born in July, so she's 3-4 months old, right? Mm-hmm. And she was colicky, so anytime I came home from work, she just hated it. That's when she was. So one day, I'm sitting in the easy chair, and Alice and the kids are going to go out grocery shopping or whatever, and she gives me Lucy. I'm like, what? And she ends up falling asleep on me. And I love watching the Food Network, so we're watching the Food Network at that time, streaming. And she falls asleep, so I don't want to move, but the remote control is across the room, so I'm stuck. I'm stuck with this going, oh my gosh, I can't move. So
No, you're gonna watch Food Network all afternoon.
You get all the weird shows, like the Barefoot,
Yep.
the Barefoot Contessa, all that kind of stuff, and you're watching. And for 3 hours, she just sleeps, and I'm in heaven, but I'm afraid to move. And so I'm watching all these shows, and then I'm like, and then when Alice comes home, she wakes up, whatever. I'm like, I got to make some soup.
Yeah.
Because it was this time, and that's what the shows were about. So I made some meat soup.
I just made venison soup.
So it was, I mean, I just started taking stuff. So I had steak in there. I had ground beef. You get rid of the grease. I had chicken. I had peas.
It's like a hodgepodge beef vegetable.
It was absolutely so delicious. But all that the kids, my kids and wife can remember is that it didn't look good. It looked like Shrek's swamp.
Yeah, no.
Corn. It didn't look good at all. But it was delicious to me. But I mean, you name it, any kind of soup that was in there.
It's like split pea soup. It looks disgusting, but tastes great.
Yeah, and I had ham. I had a little bit of everything in there. Kathy just says you can pack all kinds of healthy stuff in homemade soup. I don't cook much, but I do make a huge pot of soup every couple of weeks.
Oh, that's awesome. See, I think one of the things that I love is that it's something that freezes so well, which is why I'm in soup mode right now, because my plan, I made venison soup. It was supposed to be stew, but I pulled a thing in my neck and I was super tired, so I didn't thicken it up. So it ended up being venison soup. Tasted amazing. I was super proud of the broth. Because I get venison from my the same farm, Wanda Farm, that I get my cow from. So I shouldn't say that, because he gives it to me, because he doesn't really sell it. He just hunts it, and he has a lot extra. But my goal was to make all of my soups over the next week or so that I could stock my freezer up so that I have them all year long. Or all winter long, I should say, because it's really nice to be able to go into my freezer, and I get the to-go containers, the like 2-quart, whatever, you usually see them with sweet and sour sauce from an Asian place or something like that, or at Jewel in the deli counter. But because they freeze well for at least a short period of time, then I can, right now, you look in my freezer and I have 1 thing of chili left. I think I have like 3 beef barleys, 2 chilies, and 1 afgamano.
Are you going to be doing a chili show?
So I have 2 chili contests coming up in the next 3 months.
The reason I ask, I work with a lady.
Because you want chili?
No. And I haven't done this, but to me it's brilliant, is she was turned on to leftover chili dump.
Yeah.
And she was telling me that, and I was like, well, that sounds fantastic.
We, years ago, when someone I was dating, his parents had their boat at a marina here in town. And the marina has these parties all, like they have a luau, they have all these, at the end of the summer season, they would have a chili dump. So every boat made their small crock pot of chili. Vegetarian chili, spicy chili, chicken chili, whatever it was chili. Everybody made their chili, and they got a big giant vat and put it in the boathouse before all the boats were in the boathouse. And it would, invite their friends, and everybody would come out, and it was this big party.
Yeah.
And it was a big giant vat of everybody's chili, and hands down, best chili I've ever had in my entire life. And it cannot be replicated because it needs that 20 people's worth of chili. But yes, we could do a chili show. I don't know if we could talk an entire hour about chili.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We could have a chili contest on the show.
I think that would be great.
So we should do Thanksgiving. Well, we were going to do Thanksgiving last year, and then both Kent and I got sick.
Well, no.
Or not Kent and I.
No, Pete
and I got sick.
Yeah.
We should do a Thanksgiving show. Yeah. So all of the different kinds of soups, and the thing that is almost comical is when you go out to places and so many restaurants call things something to be fancy, and it's not right. Like you'll see all over the place. The reason I make Carrie's Southwest vegetarian tomato bisque, it's not a bisque. A bisque is typically made with it's a thick, smooth with stock with shellfish or lobster.
Yeah.
So that's not vegetarian, but it's fancy when you put something on your menu that says we have a tomato or potato or whatever bisque. Right. And of course, a lot of people think that bisques have to be cold. They don't necessarily have to be cold.
Yeah.
But I was trying to replicate somebody else's recipe because she said she missed that soup. And now it's one of my most popular soups that I make, which is why I made it and ended up on the front porch.
Well, it's cold. So
it wasn't cold enough. When I tried, I thought maybe because it dropped down into the 30s, but as soon as I put a thermometer in it and it said 52 degrees, it was not cold enough for me. I probably would eat it because I don't give a crap. Delayed sound effects. I would probably eat it because I just don't care. And if I got sick, I got sick. But I'm not going to serve my friends.
Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna get other people.
Hey,
sick.
You guys are favorites.
Good yeah, right. Here, try this soup that sat out all night long. So I haven't found a soup yet that I can't freeze. I really haven't. Even cream soups, I get it. A lot of times they split. I don't care. Yeah. If the flavor's there, I really don't. I get it if something splits to the point where it's like a custard and it's got that mealy texture. Yeah. I get that.
Right.
I haven't had that happen. I really haven't. The veg soup that I made last night, that normally I add cream to it. The only reason I didn't this time is because I wanted to share it with a friend of mine who's vegan.
Yeah.
Cream's not vegan, so I left the cream out, and of course I'm still going to have to make it again. But even when I put cream in it, it still freezes fine. So
yeah,
I don't understand. I mean, I get it. If you're whatever pompous and Food Networky and this sauce split, you know what? I'm a foodie. If it tastes good, I'm eating it. I don't care. That just made me think of when I brought spinach and chicken stuffed manicotti, and you Kent literally cracks the container at the front door of the studio, sitting by the fridge, and just eats it like a cold burrito at a gas station.
Delicious. Yeah.
Blew my mind.
I don't like eating anything else.
No.
But with soup, as if it's that heartier, creamy type, I will, because then it's like eating pudding, right?
Right. So, it congeals together, and it's like.
Yeah. But if it's cold, like I said in the green room, I'm okay with a cold soup. I mean,
same.
Yeah.
I've been trying lately, mostly because of the fact that I put on a decent amount of weight, and a lot of it is water weight. Because of my liver disease, any fluctuation in my hormones, because your liver regulates all your hormones. And usually, your insulin and all of this stuff and your hormones is a big indicator of weight issues. So I have to be careful because I'm at that age where most likely it's probably a premenopausal issue, or I just ate something that pissed off my liver. God only knows.
Yeah.
But because of that, as soon as, and the joys of being female is, you hit certain mile markers and you put on weight. That's just how it goes. Men, same thing. You look at, no matter how, even if someone's only 5 or 6 pounds heavier than what they used to be, their heads are fatter, their shoulders are broader, their hips are broader. It's just natural progression. It's just what happens. But because my liver is so sensitive and it doesn't recover as fast, the second that something happens and I see, because I weigh myself every single day, not because I need to watch a scale or because I feel like I look fat, but because of my liver situation, I have to be mindful of fatty liver. Yeah. On top of.
Yeah. Well, everybody should.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, I already have advanced cirrhosis. So I already have a decent chunk of my liver that doesn't work and it will never work. Right. So the part of my liver that's still happy, I have to make sure that I don't make it unhappy. So I've been trying to cut the creams and the breads and the carbs, because it's no secret that the vast majority of those that you consume are not good calories to consume. We're not eating bread. I mean, if I was going to Kim Nordine, who was on the show, and getting fresh milled flour to make my own bread, I would eat that all day long. It's amazingly good, but it's also very good for you. I'm not going to do that. I barely have time to make bread as it is, but that kind of bread takes a little bit more time and care and effort and skill that I just honestly don't have. Mine usually ends up a little bit.
Or some good Amish friendship bread.
See, that's the kind of thing where it just blows my mind. Like, I left soup out on the porch for one night and nobody can eat it. But yet friendship bread is a big pile of dough that you give somebody to purposefully leave on their counter as some sort of 5th grade science experiment.
Right.
But hopefully you're not going to die when you bake it.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like, I get it. And it's really good. I mean, it's just a sourdough bread, which is really tasty. But now the irony is I can't get a sourdough starter to stay alive to save my life. But I can do a great friendship bread. Put it in a bag and throw it on my counter. It'll survive for decades.
Ziploc it.
Do it proper like they do in a bakery. Can't do it. I can't do it.
Now, are you with your soups? Are you throw crackers in it, or you need a loaf of bread with? I mean,
croutons
or croutons. So it's not.
I like the crunchy.
It's not just soup.
And that's with anything. I'm the kind of person where even like a sandwich has 16 different components on it.
Yeah.
I still need carrots or chips, or I need something on the plate other than the sandwich. The same with soup. I want a bread or a potato chip or a tortilla, which lately I've been turning to tortilla chips because, I mean, because they're fried, they still have the fat, but they're better for you than most potato chips or a bread. So unless I make the bread myself.
You mean the potato chip that tastes like turkey sandwich
Yeah.
is not good for me.
No, and it's just a vehicle for seasoned salt.
My daughter went to Greece and she brought back Lay's oregano potato chip.
See, that sounds amazing.
It was really good.
That sounds absolutely amazing.
And we don't have that here in the United States. But
I will now make those.
It was really good.
No. Oregano.
Yeah, Kathy says unsalted saltines or a hint of salt Ritz.
Yeah, I always stock the hint of salt Ritz. The funny thing is, now that I don't eat salt, I realize how sweet Ritz crackers really are.
Yeah.
Like, holy sugar bomb.
Yeah.
I never would have thought of that, but I mean, whatever. I mean, they're still tasty, and I still love them. The buttery sweetness.
The other thing about soup is, I think it's so delicious because you actually slow down to eat it.
You do.
Right? Because it's hot and you're like, and there's that flavor. And you kind of unfold the flavors with a soup on your palate rather than
right.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing I think I've learned from soups is to not add potatoes. And when I do add potatoes, it's at the very, very, absolute last thing I do. I cook the potatoes separately and then add them to the soup. And a lot of times, especially if it's in a soup that you get like the nice little cubes, like bite-sized pieces of potato.
Yeah.
I will boil them like you would boil a normal potato and put just literally maybe a teaspoon of vinegar in there. Firms up the outside of the potato. So the inside of you ever have soup and you're like, how is it the potato isn't mush? The outside stays crispy and the corners stay crispy, but the inside tastes like potato, and that's how it is. It's because there's a little bit of vinegar in the water. It keeps the outside of it solid. Because potato, if you over salt or over season a dish, even if it doesn't call for potato, I mean, Italian moms everywhere will tell you that if you over season your sauce, throw a potato in it, it will suck all of the salt into the potato, and then you don't have an over seasoned thing. So if you put potatoes into your soup and it's perfectly seasoned, it's going to suck up all that season, and now your soup has no flavor again because you put potatoes in it.
Yeah.
And I've learned, because I'll make a potato soup and I put so much garlic in there, I could literally self-sustain an entire garlic farm just from one batch. It should be it's more like garlic soup thickened with a couple of potatoes.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay though.
Because I don't use salt.
Right.
And because potatoes take so much salt, I do, and I tend to use herbs de Provence more than I do an Italian because it's got lavender in it and it has a little bit more, it's got a different flavor than most most soups. So it makes you think about because I think a lot of times that's what makes things, or makes you feel, or your perception is that things are good, is because it's something unrecognizable that you actually go, what is that? And I want another bite to find out what that is. You know what I mean? So that's where the lentil soup that I had at Organic Roots, I mean, I must have had 5 bites of it just trying to focus in on what spice it was that he put in it that I didn't recognize, to figure out where that flavor was coming from. And that's the fun of food for me, is finding that out. Now, the little tidbit information on the side is that there's the psychology of it. And you say all the time, it always tastes better when somebody else makes it. Mm-hmm. I make a sandwich and I make you a sandwich. Mine tastes okay. Yeah. Yours tastes better because I made it for you. Now, if you made my sandwich, mine would taste better because you made it. Yeah. And they've actually done psychological studies to say that when I make my own sandwich, I taste all the components because I put all of it on there. I know what every layer is on the sandwich. Yeah. Even though I know what you put on my sandwich, I'm still discovering that. Yeah. So it's a completely different process in my brain. So it does legitimately taste better when somebody else makes it for you.
So Lucy just told her mom, like, you make the best ham and turkey sandwiches.
Right. It's ham and turkey. Yeah, it's the same turkey sandwich that everybody makes.
Now, through, and for everybody listening, through this wonder that Alice and I are doing, this lifestyle change, you take a quiz, and there's, I forget what the other one was called, but you take this food quiz to see which lifestyle you, and you've heard of DASH.
Yep.
Yeah. So my palate already, they're like, okay, you eat and like DASH, and DASH stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension.
Yep.
And believe it or not,
everybody in the low sodium group knows what DASH is.
Believe it or not, folks, we're watching some videos and learning. That's part of this program, so it teaches you a lot. And they talk about spending that, 2,500
milligrams of sodium.
Milligrams of sodium. And
that's the number one diet that
go to Alice and go, oh, Mary's been talking about that for years. I got this.
Somewhere in the back of my brain, I think I heard 3 words of what she said. When anybody in my low sodium world, and our low sodium world is not mine, when we go into the hospital for heart disease, liver disease, kidney disease, Mariner's disease, thyroid, cancers, low sodium is if not the most popular, one of the most popular next to low sugar diets that doctors prescribe. And inevitably, there's a dietitian somewhere that hands you a little piece of paper that explains what the DASH diet is on one side and how to cook a piece of chicken. And on the other side is how much salt is in a teaspoon of, or how much sodium is in a teaspoon of salt. And I still remember looking at the nurse when she handed me these little Mrs. Dash, which is where Mrs. Dash seasonings comes from, packets. And I laughed. She says, "What's so funny?" I said, this is just a packet of herbs. Like, this isn't really seasoning. I'm like, you can't just collectively season everything with the same, oregano, thyme, rosemary. Right. But they do. And that's where, in the beginning, that's what I cooked with. It was Mrs. Dash. And as my knowledge evolved and started learning all of these, which is why I'm a big fan of the DAX spices, is for that reason, because a lot of them started using either a heat spice like a cayenne or paprika or something of that nature, or they'll use citric acids to make that flavor punch, like Sue had mentioned, where it's this, you get that kick in the flavor that you miss with salt. It's that twinge in the cheek. The same with sour or spicy stuff, because it's that extra that you're looking for. And I think that's a lot of the time with soup, because inherently all of those flavors tend to meld together, that it does get kind of one note. So when you use good ingredients, And that's what I found a lot of times is key, because if I make a soup that has, beans and corn, if you cook the crap out of it, everything tastes the same. I like the fact that when you have a spoonful of something and the corn still tastes like corn and the carrots still taste like carrots, because they haven't been cooked for 9 million hours. And I think that's the problem with canned soup, is that because of the process that they have to do to pasteurize that, it's been cooked at such a temperature that the green beans are mushy and, the corns are mushy and the carrots are, everything is just this same one note kind of profile. So my challenge this week is I'm going to try and make a avgamano vegetarian soup. Normally it's a Greek, almost like a custard. It's a tempered egg and broth that thickens the avgamano, but it's usually chicken and rice. And I'm going to try and make it with white beans and see how it turns out.
Nice.
So we'll see how we have a lemon and white bean.
That would be really good.
The funny thing is, I hated white beans until I went low sodium. I mean, I didn't hate white beans. I hated beans in general, like refried beans, all of that.
I don't do green beans or yellow beans, but every other bean I like.
I love green beans.
It's a bad 70s trauma thing with 3 older brothers.
That's funny.
So
my sister hates peas because of that same reason, because my mom always made peas. I think I like peas just because my sister hated peas.
Yeah, but if you do cook carrots, I need them a little al dente. I don't like smushy carrots.
Same. Yeah. 100% the same. I got lazy the other day, and for the longest time now, we've had a bag of carrots in the fridge. Like, you can just grab a handful and you can snack on carrots in our fridge.
Always.
And I felt I was making something for lunch that was warm, and I thought, you know what, I'd like some steamed carrots. I don't feel like cooking them. So I looked up real quick how to do it in the microwave and threw them away. It was the most they looked horrible. Half of them were cooked so bad that they were like collapsed in on themselves. Part of them exploded. Like, I didn't cook them for 92 minutes or anything. It was only a few minutes. Part of them were steamed perfectly. The other part was still crunchy. Half of them, like the outer layer, was so tough you couldn't even chew through it. It's like, I should have just broke out the steamer and steamed some carrots. So I wonder, I mean, with crock pots and everything these days, I wonder why everybody doesn't make soup year round.
I don't know.
I mean, I do, but I make everything. I mean, I cook breakfast for dinner and I grill in the middle of winter and I make soup year round. So I think it's funny that it's only a warm weather tradition, when I really do love a good bowl of soup any time of the season. And the thing that I've found lately, when I made the venison soup the other day, I only had 1 box of beef broth. So I substituted, because normally it's a big batch, and normally I would do 2 boxes or 8 cups of beef stock, and I didn't have it. So I used vegetable. And I think that's what made the difference in the soup, because the flavor of the broth was absolutely incredible. And it was literally 4 cups of beef broth, 4 cups of vegetable stock, almost an entire head of garlic, 1 chopped onion, and a teaspoon of rosemary, teaspoon of thyme, and a can of Rotel. And then at the end, I mean, it had the venison in there obviously as well. But towards the end, I threw in pre-cooked potatoes and let the carrots cook in the stock.
Oh, yeah.
But I was really amazed at how well that broth turned out. And it, because of the Rotel, for those of you that don't know, Rotel, most people know, is something that you mix with a big giant brick of Velveeta cheese to make, the poor man's queso. but there is a no salt added version. You don't get the mild option or the hot option or any other option. You get one option for the low sodium option, and it has a little bit of heat kick to it. So it reminded me very much of like a pho or, something, that Asian type broth where it's got so many levels of flavor. And because it had that spice in it, it had a little bit of warmth on the back end that it wasn't because I can't handle heat because it burns your palate out. But holy cow, was it so good. So Kathy says it's good for your what health?
Yeah. Hot soup year round is good for your emotional health.
Oh, I believe that.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a warm hug. Yeah.
So the same organic roots that, unfortunately, if you don't live here in Northern Illinois, you're not going to be able to get anything, but he had some fresh ginseng. And of course, every time I go in there, we talk about different things that he has. Like I got to taste my first cacao fruit, which, when you think of cocoa, if you ever actually see the entire giant seed pod, you crack that seed pod open and the cocoa beans are actually coated with almost like a lychee type fruit. So they strip all that away, take the beans out, dry them out, and eventually they turn into cocoa beans. But because he ordered some in special for someone specifically, I got to try some. Holy crap. I wish we lived in a tropical climate, because I would eat those things every day.
Right. But
we talk about all of these different unique things that are absolutely fabulous for your health. Soup is one of those things that, in addition to a very good vehicle to get, vegetables and meats and proteins and vegetable soups and whatever kind of, in addition to being able to put those kinds of things in there, and get your serving of green beans or whatever it was, the spices and the health benefits of ginseng and ginger and turmeric and coriander and all of these spices over generations, thousands of years, back to Egyptians, they were learning how these, cloves help with toothaches and stuff like that. So to be able to incorporate those into my soups now is just, it's almost like a game of some sorts to see what different thing that I can put in there and see what that flavor profile comes out as.
I was just going to say, with soup, that's it, right? It's like, try some of this.
Right.
Oh, well, no. Okay. What balances that?
Yep.
Yeah. And you can't go wrong with it. And it's so fun. But what I never do is I never write it down.
No, I know.
So I'm like,
that's my,
the kids are like, oh, Dad, this was great. Hi, let's have it again. Yeah. Chances are probably not.
I know. And I've gotten way better, because obviously now with the show and with my website, and unfortunately with, 2 jobs, it's kind of hard, even more so than it was before, to get time to post things on my website. But that is always my big thing, is remembering to write down what I did. For that exact reason, because inevitably I post a picture of it, and I still have a recipe that I think it was the beef stock, and there's one that I did before that recently that I posted. Like 9 people commented, I want that recipe, I want that recipe, I want that recipe. And I'm like, I wrote it down, but my chicken scratch notes, it's not going to make sense to you in your brain, because in my head, there's always the same, 2 pats of butter in a pan, unsalted butter, an entire onion, chopped, diced, sliced, whatever it is.
How are you doing?
And depending on the dish I'm making will determine the onion, because onions and garlic, there's different species, different strains. They have different flavors. So whether it's a Spanish onion, sweet onion, shallots, whatever, but it's always a white or red rind, an entire onion chopped up, and then you put, dump the wine in, reduce the wine, and then I start building that flavor profile on top of that. So when I put my chicken notes down, or my chicken scratch notes down, I don't put that part there.
Yeah.
Because I remember that bit. So to try and remember the other parts where I say, well, this time I added rotel, or this time I added garam masala, or, turmeric, or red pepper flake, or paprika, or all of these different spices. And the one that I have found, actually 2 of them that I found that I use a lot more than I realized, sun-dried tomatoes. They bring a smokiness. The egg bites that Pete used to absolutely love, and he said they tasted like they had bacon and they didn't have bacon, was because of those sun-dried tomatoes. And I put that a lot in most of my vegetarian dishes. And I lost my train of thought. What was my other one? Sun-dried tomatoes.
I love sun-dried tomatoes.
And now I forgot what my other one was. Crap. Dead air.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I'll think of it at some point, and it's going to make me angry that I forgot what it was. Chipotle. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Chipotle spice or ground chipotle, or it's too much heat for me.
Yeah.
But when you're making a soup, you have to be really mindful. So I will add a smidge or a pinch or whatever you want to call it. It's not even a quarter of a teaspoon or half a teaspoon. It's the smallest little bit of amount. And then I'll add more, and then I'll add more, and then I'll add more. But I'll keep tasting it because I don't want too much heat that it becomes a spicy soup that I can't eat. But the chipotle, it brings a little bit of warmth on the back, but it has this smoky flavor to it that adds to the dish that does. It almost makes it taste like it's got a bacon component when it doesn't. And the sun-dried tomatoes do the same thing, where you get this almost like that smoky bacon flavor when it's not. You have to be careful with sun-dried tomatoes,
sun-dried. Oh, yeah. They're the best.
Well, you got to be careful because sometimes they're a little
as
salt.
I've been sitting here, I'm just going to tell you this, folks. When I'm thinking of my favorite soup, are you ready for this? It is morel mushroom soup.
Oh, see, that's a hard one to get.
It is, but if you honest again, because a lot of times when I have it, it's out over you make it out over the open fire,
right?
Because you've been out, or you're camping or whatever.
Somebody just foraged mushrooms.
But honest to God, that is my and you're right, and you can't
buy it in a grocery store.
Right,
you can't.
Right.
I mean, certain locations around the world, I'm sure you can buy morel mushrooms on the regular.
Yeah,
but it ain't going to be here.
Yeah.
It's going to be a high-end place somewhere in the city.
But it's so good.
Unless it's in season and a farmer like I do who has morels that grow on their farm, and you can just go get morels.
Right. But I mean, I've been sitting here thinking, and I'm like, and now I've got a real hunger for it.
See, I wonder, I'll have to see what kind of mushrooms she's got.
Yeah.
One of my friends, she had Crystal Lake mushrooms is where I get my lion's mane mushrooms. I don't think that she grows morels, but they usually, I think, are more oysters and lion's mane and stuff like that. But I bet you can still make a killer mushroom soup out of those fresh mushrooms that she makes, because they're not like reconstituted garbage that you get in the grocery store. Right. Not that those aren't bad for bringing flavor. They're just not. I'd rather have fresh if at all possible. So, but mine's tomato. I self-identify as a grilled cheese sandwich. That's no secret. And for whatever it is, I just love, and I'm not talking cheap Campbell's out of a can tomato soup, a good, well-seasoned, garlicky, creamy tomato soup, which is why that Southwest bisque is one of my favorites, because it's a chunky, thick, creamy, it's a fabulous, and I'm all for the spicy tomato soup. Now I got to make some mushroom soup too, but today is avogado.
Great day for you. Forget it at home.
Today's avogado. Today's avgolamano. But so next week we're going to be talking more about how to be healthy for the holidays. This week we discussed a little bit of soup, and here in VA we call them Merkles. Tomato. Merkles, morels, whatever. It's all a good soup.
Still so good.
It's still a good soup. So like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us for more good shows, and the more subscribers we have, the more luxuries we have, and we will be back next week.
That's it. Thanks, folks. Until then, we'll see you.
Until next week. And I'll bring food. I won't forget it on the porch. I promise.
That's right. Let's get out of here.